Okay, so we are going to start with the first chapter that we have in history. That's basically historiography. Now, how did historiography develop and what was the contribution in the West? That's all about the chapter. So, first of all, let's understand what is historiography. Historiography basically is the study of history. Now, when we study history in the background of the proofs that we have obtained. Any science, all right? Any study that we do is always backed up by the proofs that we have, by the case studies that we have, or by the evidences that we have. So, we know historical evidences can be in the form of writings, can be in the form of coins, can be in the form of songs that we have collected, can be in the form of material resources that we have collected. So, all this basically forms the background of any study of history or any study of a period that we are doing. Now, what happens in history? History is basically historiography. What is historiography? Historiography is basically critical examination of historical resources and writing the historical narrative. Now, what is critical examination? Okay, it is very important that whatever resources we have received during the excavations, material resources, coins, writings, oral resources. For example, we have many folk songs which are traditionally being carried on from a particular historical time. So, those folk songs are basically our historical resources. So, critical examination. Now, what do we mean by critical examination? Critical examination means unbiased examination. Okay, it should be critically examined. It should be the conclusion that we are going to draw should be critical. It should not be biased. See, I can support a particular ruler, but has the ruler done all things right in his tenure or life? Maybe not, because it is not possible to be absolutely right in your administration. You might be going wrong somewhere, or you might have taken certain wrong steps. That is very much possible because rulers kind of experiment with things. So at times things do fail. Okay, so critical examination means that an unbiased approach towards whatever historical evidences we have about a particular era or about a particular period or under a particular ruler. So unbiased approach, whatever would be the advantages and whatever would be the disadvantages, we will place them accordingly. Whatever are the facts, we will correlate to them, whether they are advantages, whether they are merits, whether they are demerits. So all these are compiled. So that's called critical examination. Critical examination of historical resources. Critical examination of historical resources means whatever resources we have availed, whatever resources we have got, they have to be critically examined, and writing the historical narrative. After we have collected the resources, we will write the historical narrative, and that historical narrative basically correlates to whatever events that have happened, whatever resources we have been able to gather, and then we write the historical narrative. The historical narrative needs to be written as it is, without any modifications or personal opinions of ours. Okay, we need not infuse personal opinions or personal beliefs into it. Okay, it has to be a pure historical narrative. So we gather the resources, we collect them, we gather resources from all things that are available to us, we collect them, and then we write the narrative. So that narrative is basically a neutral narrative. It will not be a biased opinion, it will not be impacted by our personal beliefs. Okay, so empirical method. Now understand what is empirical method. Empirical method here means let's say science, physics, chemistry. So these are basically sciences which we can prove in labs. Okay, for example, when we are carrying out a particular experiment in a science lab or the chemistry lab. So we know that a reactant A and a reactant B will actually react to produce a product C or a product D. Okay, so irrespective of wherever we are taking, if we keep the conditions around same, conditions of let's say temperature, pressure and all that stuff, so we will find that the products that are formed are the same. Okay, whether we perform the experiment in India or whether we perform the experiment in America. So wherever we are performing, okay, if we keep the conditions around an experiment the same, the products that we are going to get is the same. So empirical method of studying science is different and the methods applied for historical narrative is different. Empirical method means the things which can be repeatedly tested and proved in the lab. Okay, so all the science laws, whether they are physics, whether they are Newton's laws or chemistries or whatever, okay, so chemistry, bio, all these are basically connected with science, and empirical methods means that we can actually get them proved time and again by taking the same proportions, by taking the same environment around. So in terms of time and space, they can be repeatedly proved. However, this is not the case of history. Okay, history cannot be repeatedly proved because the conditions which we are living in are different from the conditions in which people in history were living in. Okay, different eras have different developments and different lifestyles and different economic structure, political structure. So the conditions which are applicable to me at this point of time, or as a human being to us at this point of time, are not the conditions, or not the same conditions which were applicable to people living in the past era or a past period. So empirical methods of studying science is different and the methods applied for historical narrative is different. So history is a subject in which the laws cannot be formulated. When we formulate a law, we can prove it time and again, repeatedly. However, history doesn't, history will not, basically we will not come to a conclusion of a law. We cannot formulate a law, okay, and apply it empirically. It will have its own contemporary conditions correlated to it, okay. So it's a continuous process. Historical narrative is basically a continuous process. The objective is to understand the chronology of past events. What do we mean by chronology? Chronology basically means, for example, in India, there was first, during the independence movement, the first movement of its kind was non-cooperation movement. Then we had civil disobedience movement, and then Quit India movement. All these are basically movements which happened one after the other. Okay, in any era, there is a basic chronology of events. So the First World War happened, and then the Second World War happened, and then the Third World War happened. What are the conditions that developed that Third World War didn't happen, the Cold War happened. So what are the conditions that developed these war-like situations? So there is a set of events that are happening one after the other, and we have to accordingly study those events. For example, without studying non-cooperation movement in India, we cannot understand the importance of Quit India movement, because the movements are one after the other. Without understanding a proper set of events that are, so without understanding the events and factors which led to the First World War, it will be a little difficult to understand what caused the Second World War. Okay, so it is a continuous process. Objective is to understand the chronology of past events. So whatever has happened in the past, the objective is to understand it and their interconnections. So what are their interconnections? So how one event transpired to the other event. So it's important that we study history in a proper set of events. This happens after this happens, okay. So a particular event has happened, after that a particular event has happened, and so on and so forth. Only then we will have a proper understanding of the interconnections. Otherwise it will look haywire. So it's very important that during a historical narrative we do a critical examination, and it's also equally important that we place the events in a proper chronological order. Okay. In empirical methods, laws which are formulated remain true irrespective of time and space. So in empirical methods, whatever laws are formulated, in the methods of science, whatever laws are formulated, they remain true irrespective of the time and space that we have. So whatever time and space we have, irrespective of that, the laws are going to remain the same, and they can be proved repeatedly in the lab. Okay, they can be repeatedly proved by taking the same proportions, by having the same environment around. We can repeatedly prove a particular law. Okay, so that's about science. That is empirical method, but the same methods cannot be applied to history. Why? Because in historical methods, historical events cannot be repeated. We cannot repeat the historical events, neither can we create a contemporary situation. The historical events which have happened in a particular era or a period cannot be repeated in the same way in current times. Why? Because that particular era had a different perspective, had a different environment, and this particular era has a different one. People's lifestyles have changed, people's ideologies have changed, the circumstances have completely changed. So it is not possible to recreate a particular historical event in the same syntax as it has happened in the past. So history and empirical science, that have a difference. So you can take a snapshot of the same while we proceed ahead to the next slide. Okay, so moving on in historiography, okay, we will try to understand more deeper into the concepts out here. Okay, now what is the need of an historian here? Basically, an historian is an expert. An historian is an expert who has his expertise, his or her expertise in different things. For example, when we have collected a sample, whether it's a document or whether it's a coin or whether it's any resource that we have collected, and there is something written on it, there is a script that is there, there is a language that has been used. We as common people might not be aware of it, but historians generally have an idea of the different languages that they have. So we need an expert in that language. Okay, so what are the things for which we will need an historian? A common man, when he collects a historical sample, might not be able to decode history the way a historian does. Okay, and what could be the differences here? So we need an expert who can understand the language and script of a historical document. So we need a person who can understand the language as well as the script of a historical document. What is the language and what is the script of a particular historical document, who can decode it properly. So we would need an historian who has a basic understanding of the language that has been used in that particular sample of a coin, a document, or maybe a manuscript. Okay, and who can understand the script as well, and he or she can decode the entire historical document. We also would need an expert who would be obviously an historian, who can examine the authenticity of the document. Now, what do you mean by authenticity? Authenticity is whether the document is actually the document which has been collected from a particular time frame. Anybody can make a document, right, on his own, and anybody can do anything. So authenticity of the document, how can you examine the authenticity of the document? For example, when you sign a check, the cashier at the bank would examine the authenticity of your signature. He would correlate to the information that he has available. All right, so he will look up into his systems and see what kind of signature you have used earlier and what is the signature that you are using now. That's the authenticity of the check that you are drawing. Okay, so you are trying to encash a check, and that's how the signature will match. So authenticity of the document. In the same way, historians also examine the authenticity of a particular document. So what is it that are basically the factors that help in examining the authenticity? First of all, the lettering style. How have the letters been arranged? How has the words been used? Okay, if it has been used in the same way that was used at that particular moment of time, so that kind of proves a little. What is author's style of writing? Every author basically has a style of writing. For example, when we study Shakespeare, he has a particular style of writing. Okay, thou art, and all those words that normally, generally we do not find in literature of today, that were very much common in literature on those times. So that's basically the author's style of writing. So whatever has been written, is it matching with the author's style of writing, the previous information that they already have? Manufacturing date. Manufacturing date, we can use different scientific methods, such as we have carbon dating method, in which we can basically examine a document or basically a sample of its date. Okay, so the carbon dating method is very extensively used here. Okay, the type of paper that has been used to write that, okay, whether it is a paper. So this is chemically and scientifically we can examine these things. What is the type of paper that has been used? What are the stamps of authority on that paper, if there are any stamps of authority by a king or by a ruler? Okay, so these are basically information that are already there in the archives of historians, and by comparing these informations from the archives, they can actually correlate to a document received, whether it is genuine or whether it is authentic. Okay, so there can be attempts made to twist and tweak history. There can be attempts made to contaminate history. There can be attempts made to defame the history of a particular region, and historians in that case have to be very careful about these things. So we need an expert who has a proper knowledge of all these things. A proper storehouse of archives is there from where they can correlate and from where they can prove whether the document is authentic or genuine or not. Okay. For example, we have a ruler, and we have a ruler for whom we have studied very vastly in history, and we have a huge respect for that ruler or the king or the politician, and all of a sudden somebody comes up with a document saying that this is the document which kind of proves that the ruler was not as respectful as we consider him to be. So in that case, historians have to be very careful in examining their document before they actually give their opinion on it, or before that is made a part of history. They have to be very carefully in actually examining the authenticity of the document, and these are certain things which will help in examining the authenticity of the document. And that's the reason the need of an historian, an expert basically, who has all this information archived with him. Okay, now understand, when we write a historical narrative basically means a particular event or a particular era or a particular thing that we are writing about the past. So it's a narrative basically. So what are the things that we have to be very careful about? Critically examining the resources. The first thing is formulating hypothesis. First thing is formulating hypothesis. What is hypothesis basically? Hypothesis is certain assumptions that we make that this must have happened in that period. And most of the times we would see that historians have a common hypothesis about a particular era or a period of the past. So these are things which might have happened in the past. Okay, so there is a certain assumptions, a set of assumptions that is there. It might not be backed up by exact proofs, but then it is there. Okay, so there is formulation of hypothesis is the first thing that happens, and then critically examining the sources. So whatever sources we have achieved, whatever resources we have achieved, coins, documents, manuscripts, folk songs, whatever, okay, whatever is there at our disposal, that has to be examined critically. Then examining relevant reference, okay, available for historical info. So after we collect the resources, then we will correlate to the relevant references that are there to the historical information. Okay, we will correlate these resources to the relevant information. We will match up with the information that we already have about a particular period or a particular era. So if we have if we see that in a particular country the coins actually changed in a particular time, so what information do we have about the ruler at that point of time? That is something that we will examine. So examining relevant reference. So we will kind of refer to who was the ruler at that point of time, because of which the emblem or the mark on the coins changed. So that will be the relevant reference. That's how we will kind of correlate. Okay, highlighting the processes that lead to the historical transaction. So why has a change happened? What transpired the transition? Okay, for example, when we collect the resources, and let's say in Indian freedom struggle, the Indian National Congress was formed. Now as the Indian freedom struggle continued, there was a split in the Congress. So the Congress basically got divided into extremists and moderates. Moderates were the ones who were a little soft in their approach of demanding freedom, whereas extremists were the ones who were very aggressive in their approach of demanding freedom. So this kind of split happened in the Congress. What led to this split? What led to this change? Okay, so that's how we will correlate with the historical references that we have. So highlighting the process that transpired a change. Okay, if a change has happened and we have enough of documents or enough of proof that has been received, we will correlate to what has been the reasons for the change. Conceptual framework of time and space. So we will basically divide into conceptual framework of time and space. We will properly place it in a framework of time and space, and that is very conceptual. These are the things that have happened one after the other. What were the reasons behind it? What are the proofs? Do the proofs actually correlate to our assumptions? Do the proofs actually correlate to the theories that we have developed so far? Okay, formulating relevant questions. Then we will have relevant questions. Relevant questions about a certain incident or a certain happening in history. So relevant questions are very necessary, because until and unless we formulate relevant questions, we will not have a deep understanding about a particular era or the events that have happened in a particular era. So we need to question those things, formulating relevant questions: what happened, why it happened, where it happened, okay, what are the factors that supported the event, what are the factors that kind of, you know, they didn't back up the event, or what are the factors that were against the event, what were the circumstances that were for the event, or what were the odds that were against the event, okay. So these were certain things that we will have to question and reframe the entire history. Okay, so that's how the resources are collected, developed, critically examined, and presented as a historical narrative to us. Okay, so there's a lot that goes behind the things that we read in history. It's just not that, you know, we got a sample and we made history. We have to collect various resources, correlate to the events that have happened, correlate to all the opinions that have been framed, and present a neutral picture of whatever has happened. Okay, and that's how we study history. You can take a snapshot of the same while we move on to the next slide. Alright, so more into the disciplines of historiography. So what do we mean by disciplines of historiography? Disciplines of historiography basically means in what context are we trying to study and understand history. Okay, disciplines of historiography. So what are the you know, things in the context of which, or on the basis of proof of which, we are trying to understand historiography. So archaeology. Now we all know what is archaeology. Archaeology is basically samples that have been collected. Okay, so for example, we have the Archaeological Survey of India. This team basically is conducting surveys wherever they are, or they are making excavations, or they are making dugouts at wherever they are finding traces of history. For example, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. These sites were discovered, and you know, then we have this Indus Valley civilization that was kind of written, or the Indus Valley civilization, the entire historical concept of Indus Valley civilization was framed. So this is Archaeological Survey of India. So archaeology means collection of old documents, collection of old, wherever we are getting this from, fossils, it can be anything. Okay, it can go back to a very brief period of history. It all depends on what we have collected. So archaeological basically means old documents, old fossils, old coins, old manuscripts, everything actually comes under archaeology. Okay, now what we have as archival science. Archival science basically means that a library of all the historical documents that we have collected and references that we have collected. It's a kind of a museum basically. This is stored information. Why do we need to store the information? See, as I gave you an example, when the cashier at the bank is examining the check, the signature of the check, okay, he is basically examining examining the signature that is stored in his computer, okay, that is there in his computer. Only then he will authorize the check. If the signature is not matching, then he will not authorize the check, he will not give you the money. Okay, so in that case, storing the information of your signature in the bank is important. Okay, so in the same way, there is stored information. All these informations that have been compiled up by different archaeological projects that have happened, okay, they need to be stored somewhere, and the government basically preserves this information in museums, in various archaeological labs. Okay, so stored information from historical documents, or stored information from historical coins, etc., whatever we have received as. So this is basically primarily stored information, okay, and other references. So this is done in museums and all. So this is stored information, okay, and it is properly preserved. It is the basically the government's job to properly preserve it. Okay, so basically this correlates to different things. So archival science is basically a collection of all. So see, when we get a document tomorrow, how will we examine the authenticity of that document? By referring to the stored information that we already have. Okay, by referring to the information about signatures, by referring to the information about the style of paintings, by referring to the coins, the stamps on them. So by referring to these things, we can say, oh, okay, the document that we have gotten today is basically in sync with what we have as a historical information from the past in our stored archival library. Okay, so this is basically, once we collect all the information, we store them. Okay, manuscriptology. Okay, so in olden times, when printing technology had still not developed, the authors used to write their works in their own handwritings, or maybe they used to employ somebody in order to write. Okay, so that is called manuscriptology, that is old handwritten books. For example, we have a reference in Hindu mythology that when Vedavyas basically started writing the Ved, he was not able to write, so he called upon Ganesha to write it. Okay, so that's how it is. So they might have written it on their own, or they might have employed somebody who has a good handwriting to write it. So these are old handwritten books. Okay, these are basically handwritten by the authors themselves, or they must have narrated and somebody else would have written on their behalf. So printing technology at that moment of time had not been invented, so they had actually written them on leaves of papers, or on leaves, on papers, or wherever. Okay, so that is called old handwritten books. Epigraphy, what is, so that is manuscriptology. Okay, what is epigraphy? We will find that historians, or rather in olden times, paper was not there and ink was not there, so printing technology was not there. So whenever human beings thought about how to pass on the information of their lives and of their beliefs and of their culture to the next generation, the only medium that they got was rock carvings, okay, or maybe carvings on walls, stones, etc. So these were basically inscriptions that were inscribed on them. When we visit a very old temple, we will see a lot of inscriptions out there. So those are basically cut on rock, because they know that these will be permanent. Okay, these will be the handy things that will be available to the people of future generation to know about their culture. Okay, so they had this vision, and we will notice that on a lot of old temples or maybe caves, we will see a lot of inscriptions on them. Okay, so these inscriptions, the study of these inscriptions on stones, walls, etc., the understanding of these inscriptions is called epigraphy. This is called epigraphy. Okay, now analysis of the lettering style. How do we analyze the lettering style? How do we analyze the letters that are there? So linguistics is basically study of language. Linguistics is basically study of language. So when we study linguistics, basically we are studying what? We are studying language. Okay, scriptology, language, and all that stuff. Numismatics. What is numismatics? Basically this is study of coins. This is study of coins, how we study coins and all. Genealogy is a very wide subject. Okay, for example, when we talk about human evolution, how have they evolved? In terms of science, we have evolved from apes. So how has this entire evolution shaped up? How has it transpired? So genealogy is one thing that we study in lineage. So these are certain things that are very useful in basically historiography. Okay, we will learn more about them. You can take a snapshot of the same.